My name is Ryan Slazarzik. I'm the president of the Seaman Alumni Affinity Network Board. It's my absolute pleasure to have everyone here in this room this morning. We welcome alumni, students, faculty, and staff, and our incredible Grand Valley community here today. If you're a student in the room, can you please stand up? Thank you so much for attending. I think this may be one of our largest student attended Secchia events, so thank you for attending. Also wanted to welcome our special guest, President Philomena Mantella, Provost and Executive Vice President Fatma Milli, as well as our Dean of Students, Diana Lawson, here at Seaman College of Business. Welcome. So thank you all for taking time out of your busy day and schedule to be with us here this morning. It's been 442 days since our last Secchia Breakfast Lecture Series. We used to host these 3 to 4 times a year with super impactful speakers, dynamic, integrated leaders from really around Michigan and the Midwest, and we're really happy that you're here with us this morning. We're really able to be here due to the generosity, the vision, as well as the commitment to the Seaman College of Business of the late, great Ambassador Peter Secchia. Please join me in a round of applause for thanking Peter and the Secchia family today. So on behalf of the Seaman Alumni Affinity Network, we're excited to bring you 3 incredibly engaging and impactful West Michigan business leaders here today. We're going to do a little fireside chat of style that will be self-directed, and they are prepped and armed and ready to go. So our first leader that we'll welcome to the stage is the current CEO and board member of Market Lab. He has decades of experience in manufacturing, technology, supply chain, brand, and portfolio development. He holds an MBA from the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago, a master's degree from University of Southern California, and a bachelor's from the Milwaukee School of Engineering. Please welcome Tom Hill to the stage. Next, we have the president and senior managing director for Northern Trust. She joined the organization in 2019 with a plethora of experience in developing strategies, integrated modeling, organizational design, and cost reduction as a management consultant for McKinsey. She holds her MBA from the Harvard Business School and bachelor's from University of Michigan, go Blue. And please join me in welcoming Alison Mast to the stage. And finally, we have the president and CEO of ADAC Automotive. Prior to joining ADAC, he worked in other automotive and technology solutions companies in various leadership positions, including but not limited, president and vice president of sales and marketing. He has spent time in connected mobility solutions, cybersecurity, while also focusing on technology, functionality, and performance. Actually saw that you worked at TomTom, which was cool. Bought one of those a while ago. He holds a bachelor's from Albion College and an MBA from Wayne State University. Please join me in welcoming John Husby to the stage. So like I said, this is going to be a fireside chat format, if you will. Our 3 distinguished guests here will walk you through their backgrounds, their organizations, how they got to be with their organizations, their experiences here in West Michigan, and what they see as opportunities in the future for their companies, as well as their employees and our future generations and the students that are represented here today. Around 8:45, Jarrett will be on stage and will assist us, or I think actually Jill will be on stage at 8:45 to walk us through some Q&A, and then Jarrett will do our closing for us. Please give it away for Alison, John, and Tom. Please take it away.
So I would like to start just by sharing my family, because they're certainly a big part of my life, and everything that I do, and maybe both of you would like to do the same. So I've been married for almost a decade to a Chinese national, Jenny, and she came back with me from mainland China, which is something I'll share a little bit about later as I talk. We have twin 9-year-olds, a 6-year-old, and a 4-year-old.
Boys, girls?
All boys.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I moved from Chicago with my husband, Kevin. We also have kids, too. We have a 2.5-year-old and a 1-year-old. They're 17 months apart. I'm not sure if I would recommend it, but it's beautiful chaos. So they keep us busy, I think, certainly.
Yeah.
One boy, one girl.
And I've been married to my lovely college sweetheart from Albion College, Yo Trampe, who 26 years now, almost going on 27, and we have 2 wonderful kids. I have a daughter who is 22 and a biochemistry grad doing genetic counseling activity out in Philadelphia. I have a son who's a sophomore in computer science at Illinois Tech in Chicago, and changing the world of mobility and software. And yeah, it's been a little fun having that balance of one of each. So.
Yeah, you can give us tips later.
That's right.
Yeah. So career-wise, my story is actually very simple, and it starts with school. So I was a computer engineering major, and I was taking my first computer programming classes, and this doesn't happen too often anymore, I don't think, but the head of the computer engineering program happened to be teaching Computer Science 101. He saw my work, and he said, "Great news, Tom. You're going to go work at a local company that's very focused on technology, and you're going to be an intern." So, well, that's interesting. Never heard of that company, didn't know what an internship was. And I went over and I became an intern, and I ended up working there for almost 25 years at the same company. And had a chance to really grow my career and reinvent myself several times during that journey, from my start in technology through running a multi-billion-dollar business-to-business procurement platform, through moving to mainland China and making my pitch to say, I'd like to go to supply chain. I'd like that to be my focus now. I'm going to take the company to Asia. I'm going to move our supply chain there. I'm going to start sales into mainland China. I came back about 6 years ago and really reinvented myself again to be about our internal brands. And that was a fun shift as well, right? Leading marketing and sales and operations and fulfillment, and building a house of brands inside a distributor. So I joined what was the largest distributor to skilled nursing and assisted living facilities in the USA. Started at 150 employees, $200 million of revenue. I left at 1,300 employees, $1 billion of product revenue, and $5 billion of technology platforms. And it's a fun ride, starting as intern. Right?
Yeah.
I got a phone call on what happened to be the absolute perfect day, based on some things I had going on at work, and I took the call. And 6 months of interviews later, I ended up here in West Michigan. So I work for one of the successful families here in the area, and I lead their healthcare venture, Market Lab, which is a great Grand Rapids story. It's a local entrepreneur. He was a field sales rep for Fisher Scientific, and traveling from medical lab to medical lab, he noticed a problem with how blood was being drawn. He literally created a product in his garage, and that first product was called the Tube Jockey, to hold vials of blood on someone's wrist. And that company grew through his efforts, then through private equity, into being a substantial company here in the area, and it really is a great Grand Rapids story. I'm proud today to be the CEO and a board member there. We serve clinical laboratories, anesthesia, imaging centers, home health, and other healthcare settings across the country. So that's a little bit about my background and story.
Yeah.
Alison.
Little less direct, I think, my journey. So how far back do we go? At the University of Michigan, I majored in English and Spanish. I thought I would go to law school. Both my parents were lawyers, very different types of law. My mom's a corporate litigator, and my dad does Social Security disability compensation. So I don't know if that means anything to anybody, but truly could not be more different types of people, which is also why they got divorced. Anyway, I thought I wanted to go to law school. I loved reading, and I did an internship in college with a judge, a friend of my father's. It was very clear that I did not want to go to law school after that internship, but I wasn't sure what I did want to do. And so for the 2 years after U of M, I did Teach for America. It's more or less, for those of you unfamiliar, a Peace Corps-like program. It's an AmeriCorps program, but within the U.S., you commit to teach for 2 years in an under-resourced district. So I taught high school Spanish in Hartford, Connecticut, to students who were not much younger than I was at the time, but it was an incredibly rewarding experience, particularly because when I started, I had nothing, no textbooks. I mean, they're under-resourced for a reason, so you're really building it from scratch. Wow. And it was that entrepreneurial spirit that I think led me to consulting. I knew I didn't want to stay in education, but I liked constantly learning and building, and that is what consulting offered me. So first with Accenture, then with McKinsey, I did a wide variety of work for the company. Strategic cost reduction, operating model, organizational design. The joy of strategy, I think, is it puts you in the room with the decision makers, the people who are running the business and who have the opportunity to really guide those organizations forward. When I came out of business school, I thought, do I have it in me to work 90 plus hours a week? I made a career pivot purely by happenstance. This is my pitch to take the coffee. The random coffee leads you down roads that you can't anticipate. I had a friend who worked at 50 South Capital, that's Northern Trust's alternative investing arm. Secondaries, no direct investing. And he said, I've got a friend. He's the CFO of this company called Northern Trust, and I think you should sit down with him. And I did. And so 2 months later, I had joined Northern Trust to lead strategy for wealth management nationally. So I was working out of our corporate headquarters in Chicago through May. And in May, an opportunity came up to take more of an operational role as president of West Michigan, and that is when I moved with my family from Chicago here to Grand Rapids. I always wanted to run a business, and I think the risk of staying in strategy too long is you get too far from the front lines, get a little bit disconnected from reality and what's going on, so was very excited for the opportunity to come here. Northern Trust, really briefly, for those of you who are not familiar, is a wealth management company, or at least I work within wealth management. The business actually has two halves, institutional and personal wealth management. Same services offered, but one to institutional businesses and one to individuals. Private wealth focuses on those with $5 million and above in investable assets. We have a separate group for global family office. So if you think of the founding families in Grand Rapids, those with 500 million or more, look, their lives look very different than ours do. So certainly the services they need are very different. They're segmented separately. But within that, we focus on investments, trust, advisory, banking. I'm happy to go in deeper, but it's a very exciting business, and it's been fun to build something new with the team here. Many of my team members are in the room right now, so it's been a great 8 months.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
My journey was a little bit different, but I'll play off of the internship thing to start with, and a little bit of what did my parents do, right? It's because my dad was a CPA, CFO, and I said, I'm accounting, I'm finance, I'm going into it. At Albion, I was on a path to have the prized internship. Back then, with the Big Six, it was Cooper Librant. I had the prized offer to go out to San Francisco. And before I went, I decided, I don't know if I really want accounting. I don't want to be an auditor. I want to be with people. And I want to get out and I want to do more. And I took a complete flip. And I'm probably one of those few people who have gone the human resources communications route and found my way into a CEO role along the way. I will tell you that at Albion, my goal was get the experience, be hungry, and that's my encouragement to every student in this room. I had 4 internships during my time at Albion. All of them framed me in a different way. Manufacturing environments, nonprofit. I was talking to a guy earlier that's studying some nonprofit management here, and really went this different path to learn. It pulled me into the auto industry. It started to give me global experiences to get awareness to I was working for a Japanese company, so my ability to start traveling overseas, to start experiencing different regions of the U.S., different parts of the world, that led to technology. And back then at Denso, I had moved from human resources into sales. I had the opportunity to start pursuing new technologies like navigation systems. Today, everyone has it on your phone. Everyone, a few cars, etc. But back then, it was very rare. Only 1% of vehicles had it. And this was about how do we position that technology. And so I went on this entrepreneurial path where a company out of Europe came and said, hey, we do digital mapping. And I'm like, what? How do you, you think of these paper maps, right? And I said, okay, let's go try this. What do I have to lose? I'm in my 20s. Let's go get aggressive and try this. And it has been a wonderful reward to be able to grow that category. Work, as you called out earlier, work at TomTom, a global leader in navigation. They created the category of these things with the suction cup you put up on your windshield. And it's been fun. But I've had this great opportunity to work through, like they said, cybersecurity, work through advanced software, build businesses around the world, fix businesses. I lived in the Netherlands for a bit, a great opportunity to be overseas, to experience new cultures, to experience diversity of thought, diversity of culture. And that really has been a guiding factor. And how did I get to West Michigan? Well, I've had some great gigs in my career, but this one struck me. A 47-year-old private company, great foundation, two families standing behind the business, with an opportunity to come in and help rethink the future of this business as the first non-family member CEO. And that intrigued me. That was, okay, now we're on to something. I've run P&L. I've had the opportunity to drive technology, but this one really excites me. And it has been a really fun ride. I've only been here 5 months, but it has really been a great ride. And I will tell you, the West Michigan community has been extremely welcoming. My staff, I've never had a team that has been more open to sharing ideas. I've never had a community more inviting. I don't know about you, but I will tell you, and I apologize if you're in the room, the 100 or 200 consultants, financial planners, professional recruiters who have reached out that I didn't return your calls, I apologize.
She's
Was I
right
one of
here.
those?
No,
Yeah.
no.
She's right here.
No, I have two thoughts following, and one of them is not about, but it strikes me that we are actually working at three companies at very different stages of growth. And particularly in a community like West Michigan, the way that those companies are positioned, I think, must be very different, just by nature of the community, right? A startup versus really being at an inflection point of growth, right? Moving from a multi-generational family business to an outsider is a very difficult transition to make, I can say from my consulting days. Northern Trust has been around for 133 years. We're known for our strength and stability. We're one of the few banks during the financial crisis that still paid dividends. We are a steady Eddie. And so to come in as an outsider and try to rebuild something while having that stable foundation, it's very different, I would imagine, than what you two are facing here in the market. I don't know if that resonates, but.
Yeah, I mean, our story, well, we were founded by an entrepreneur, and I was rambling quickly. The business has been around 30 years.
Okay.
What is new for us is we left private equity to family office ownership here. And that is almost like starting over. Yeah. Right. So we have a solid foundation, but we've had to go through quite a bit of change. And you're right, I think the community has been very welcoming here, especially from a business perspective. The ability to make connections here is just wonderful. Wonderful.
Let me tell you a bit about my experience. They have been really welcoming. Everybody talks about West Michigan nice.
Yep.
I was told about this even before I got here. There's not a person who will not be kind to you upon coming to West Michigan, which I might add is one of the reasons my husband and I decided to move here. We're Midwesterners at heart. He's from Illinois. I'm from Ohio. That's right. Ohio.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody got that. It does happen. Rarely. And we liked that. It just felt comfortable.
Right.
To come in as an outsider in the business I am in is very challenging because people trust their wealth with people they know. It's based on loyalty. It's based on relationships. It's based on time. And so it's very challenging to come in and say, wait, let me tell you about what it is that we can offer that's different. Unless people have made some sort of gaffe, it's very rare that you can break those relationships. And so in terms of growing my business, building my business, that has been a lot more challenging than I might have anticipated. Though from a strategic standpoint, I felt very happy. The team that we've built over the last 8 months, we've made a bunch of new hires. The professional advisors that we work with in the community, all super welcoming and I think helpful in trying to get a handle on how West Michigan is as unique as it is.
Yeah. I'll talk about the inflection point a little bit. So it's interesting. ADAC has been a very solid partner in the auto industry for a very long time, doing a wide range of products that evolved over time. Where it gets interesting is, and I don't think I need to tell any of you how much the last 2 or 3 years in the auto industry have been beyond challenging, with semiconductor issues and raw material increases and freight problems and everything else in the industry. But what that does is it gives everyone an opportunity to rethink, and that's exactly why I was brought in to help rethink, to bring some of that global experience. And what I'm finding is this deep desire to want to see more of what's going on in the rest of the world. And I applaud that. And that really is my challenge for West Michigan, is to continue to really have that global thought and try to bring that in. The company is rethinking itself now because of that. I have members of my team in the room today, and to start to look at diversification. This is where we're going now. I mean, we've made a full commitment with our board. We're going all in to make that change. And I have one of our very experienced leaders in the company embracing that, ready to drive this new P&L to go start to do that. But bring in new innovation, leverage what we have, but find partnerships. And I promise you, if we sat here a year from now, there would be partnerships in this room that were formed because of that diversification. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's great.
You think you'd say the same for why they brought you in? To bring in a global perspective, something from outside of West Michigan, something different after 30 years of...
Well, I can't speak to what their thinking was, but I will say, there were 2 internal candidates, 2 external candidates, and it was a conscious choice. And, I mean, they retained Korn Ferry to do a nationwide search. So, yeah, I think it is a conscious decision. And since coming here, that's certainly been one of my biggest drives is the talent needed to really grow at that inflection point, and doing nationwide searches for that talent. And it's created some interesting conversations with candidates that haven't spent much time in West Michigan. And you explained Grand Rapids. I think it's kind of a hidden secret for more folks than you might expect if you're from this area. Of just even saying it is like, where? And then you kind of like, okay, well, here's what the assets are. Here's what the community's like. Here's what the infrastructure is in the area. And I think relative to its size, I joke with my wife, as much as we'd like there to be more than 36 flights, we're lucky to have 36 flights. And because a lot of cities of this size wouldn't have an airport and have this kind of infrastructure here. But that makes recruiting very interesting.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not sure what both of your experience has been on that front.
On the flight front?
Well, on the recruiting front, yeah.
So coming to Grand Rapids was a choice for me. I had actually several other market opportunities available to me when I switched out of strategy into an operational role. Among them, San Francisco. Could not be more different than Grand Rapids. There were several other suburban markets closer to our headquarters, Barrington up in Illinois, 2 teams that would have been based out of Chicago. Talked about opening one from scratch in Nashville. And I chose to come here for a lot of reasons. One, because I wanted my husband to come with me, and if I moved to San Francisco, that wouldn't be happening. He does not like it out there. But I thought it was a good professional challenge and a really good personal fit. Mm-hmm. And, when I was back in consulting, they used to tell you can never have all 3 things on any project. You can functionally love what you're doing, or you can love the company, or you can have a great personal fit. You don't I shouldn't say you don't, but you very rarely get all three.
Yeah.
And this seemed to offer that in a way that I thought I couldn't find in other markets. So that's what brought me here.
That's great.
At least, despite all the flights, which
Yeah.
lack thereof.
Yeah. Well, my wife still lives in Detroit area, so I have a few more flight options when I go back that way. But let me talk about the recruiting for a second.
Yeah.
It's interesting. As I've come to Grand Rapids as a global person, one living in Detroit, traveling all over the world, etc. I was in my first week on the job, meeting with my HR team, going through all the important KPIs of recruiting, etc. And I said to them, this place does not scream diversity. One, our company, and two, the broader area. And I said, we have got to figure this out. And one of the choices we made right then was we need to start to change the way that we're going to look at our leadership team overall. I will tell you that since then I've hired a incredible woman to be our chief technology officer, which I really love in the STEM area, a Grand Valley grad. Came from a company working on code for Artemis II rocket. She's driving our innovation now. I'm excited about it. Next Wednesday, I have another Grand Valley grad starting as my CFO, and I'm excited to have her. We're continuing to diversify, but it has to go beyond gender diversity. And that is a conscious decision that we are making now. Mm-hmm. We're trying to get more aggressive on what we're going to do to get that thought leadership, to get diversity of understanding as we design products, as we go to market, as we create new opportunities. So, from a recruiting perspective, we're going to change. We are changing the way that we're doing things, and we have to. And I challenge the entire community to do that.
Yeah, we've tackled that problem. I agree with you, John. It's really important to do for the future of our companies. We've tended to hire more and more people outside of Grand Rapids. Just the pool of diverse candidates is so much bigger. And then bring them here on a regular basis, but say, no, you don't have to relocate. Yeah. And so from our chief people officer, senior director of HR, VP of supply chain, we've got diversity. It's just in New Jersey and Dallas, Texas, and Jacksonville, Florida, and coming here a week a month and then going back. Yeah. That's what we've done.
Challenging in wealth management. Doesn't work. It does sometimes. The remote location. If you're talking to somebody about your financial well-being and your future and your goals, truly some of the most intimate conversations you can have with a person that's not your husband or your wife, it's typically best done in person. Mm-hmm. And which is not to say that we do not have clients that we meet with virtually. We certainly do. But we want to always offer them the opportunity to meet in person at their home or in our office. And so we've had to find that talent here or find people who are willing to relocate mm-hmm. here. I hired over the past 8 months 5 new team members. We're likely to hire 2 more in the coming years. We continue to prepare for growth. And I will tell you, it's very challenging to find diverse candidates in this market. We opened a post for an investment associate. Within 2 weeks, we had 36 applicants. 1 was a woman. All were white. And so the solution there is to start sooner. Mm-hmm. I can't hire candidates that don't exist. And so particularly within financial services, which is heavily skewed towards men, mm-hmm. We really need to make sure that students are encouraged to pursue lines, STEM included certainly, so that we have a pipeline of more diverse candidates. I certainly am doing my best to recruit that talent to come to West Michigan. I think we have a lot to offer, but it's an uphill battle, certainly, I think. So what else? What else do we need to know? What else should we share?
Yeah. One of the fun things, and I'm going to actually just, if anyone after the fact, you can send me a LinkedIn or whatever, and I don't know about your teams mm-hmm. or people. When I came to the area, I did a one-on-one with every single manager and above in the company.
Right.
And I asked them a lot about strengths, weaknesses. I had to ask the proverbial, are you a Michigan or Michigan State fan, et cetera. But fast story, the owners are large Michigan State fans, and the majority of people were actually Michigan fans, by the way. So I just had to do that. Anyway, but one of the things I asked was, give me a place that I ought to experience. I'm new to West Michigan, give me a place. And it was really cool, the number of people that gave me, yes, there were restaurants and things, but there were people that talked about festivals, that talked about some of the hiking trails, that talked about these other pieces. And I've been, ticking off that list a little bit. So any recommendations, I have that, but I don't know if your teams did something similar with you.
I'd welcome any recommendations. And, yeah.
I know, I want to see this list between your restaurant list.
Yeah. I'll share it. I'll send it to you.
That's good. No, I think professionally, people have been very welcoming. I will admit that moving as a 30-something-year-old with 2 young children who are not yet of school age has been very challenging from a personal standpoint. We knew nobody when we moved to Grand Rapids. And I should add, I've not lived in the same city for more than 3 years in my entire adult life. And for many of those, I was consulting, which meant between Monday and Thursday, I was not home. But it's a remarkably tight-knit community here in West Michigan. People stay here. If they leave, they come back. So from a personal standpoint, with full transparency, it has been challenging. I think particularly for my husband, who now works from home and is like super extroverted. And he's home with the nanny and the 2.5-year-old and 1-year-old all day. So I think will take time, but that I think will be critical for making sure that we can really make Grand Rapids our long-term home, which is certainly the intention. So.
Yeah, having young children, I will agree. I think it's just been an adjustment, and I came from Milwaukee before, and then China before that. But even in Milwaukee, which really isn't that much bigger, the childcare resources, and I think it often is because of the makeup of the community here, where a lot of people have deep roots here, so they have a lot of family here, so there isn't as much need for daycare and nanny and those services. And when you aren't necessarily a planner on that front, it can come back to bite you. You really need, there are very limited for professionals moving in with families, right?
Yeah.
So,
this is a community that, and you're right, everyone talked about the West Michigan Nice, but they also said everyone knows everyone somehow. And I will tell you, this whole concept of 6 degrees of separation, you get into this area and you're 2, maybe 3, usually 2. I mean, there's weird things where a good friend of mine from the auto industry, when I took the job, said, hey, I got a guy you got to meet. Well, I'm telling you right now, I had probably 60 of those people that I used to work with. I have a friend, I have a cousin. I didn't pay attention. I was busy getting into the job. Well, I'm staying at a Verbo as I came into town, and I walk into the building. I am right downtown in the First Community Bank building at that time. And I go into the elevator, and this guy walks in behind me, and he starts talking to me about, hey, welcome, I haven't seen you here. And I said, well, I'm doing a rental. Oh, well, I get off the elevator. He goes, where did you say you're at? And I said, ADAC. And he goes, are you John DeGainer's friend? And it was the guy that John was trying to introduce me to that I never had a chance. So here's the funny part of the story. Let me fast forward to Monday this week. I get a phone call from that same guy who I've stayed in touch with. And he goes, hey, I got a guy you really need to meet. You really got to meet this guy. It's amazing. You guys are both new to the area. I think you would get along. And maybe we can go out and have lunch. His name is Tom Hill. And I said, I'm on a panel Friday with Tom Hill.
So it works
so
here.
Again, the 2 degrees of separation.
That's funny. Yeah, it's great.
I will say that the response to that is to try, it was the same advice I received in consulting. Meet as many people as you can. It's what I've spent as much of my time as possible doing. I will take a coffee, a breakfast, a lunch with anybody and everybody. I genuinely want to get to know people in the community, both for personal and professional reasons. And it's the best way to quickly integrate and get to know West Michigan.
Yeah.
Any city, you think you know until you really meet the people who live there. You can't fully integrate or be successful, I think, really at your job. So.
Well, the same goes for any students in this room. if you'd like to get together for coffee or breakfast and just talk about business, life. I've had so many people that have done that for me in my career as I've been moving through life. I'd be happy to pay that forward, and all of our info's out there on LinkedIn, and if our name tags haven't fallen off, you can see who we are, but be very happy to do that.
I actually love this point. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm taking up all the air in the room. That is how I made all my career connections, the jumps.
Yeah.
I just called people. And when I was in Teach for America, I looked up people who were alums from my high school, from my college, who went to Michigan and did Teach for America, who went to Michigan and were working at McKinsey, and just said, hey, do you have 15 minutes? I just have some questions about how you made the transition.
Right?
At every stage. And that's how I guided my path forward. And so I've always tried to do my best to pay that forward. I wouldn't be where I am today without it, certainly.
Yeah. No, that's a great offer. Standing offer, I think, for all three of us for the room.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Are there any questions? Yeah, I just can't see. The sun's out. I'm not used to this. I've not seen the sun for like, I don't know, 180 days. Now all of a sudden it's out this morning. Yeah.
We're not known for our sun.
Yeah.
How are you doing all this recruiting? You mentioned some of you are offering remote, and how do you handle existing employees? And where is your view on hybrid working in the variety of industries that you're in?
I bet we have three very different answers to that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, first we look by job function, of course, right? Because there are some jobs that it just isn't practical at all. If you're on the manufacturing floor, that's not going to be a remote job, right? And if you're running quality in the factory, that's not going to be a remote job. But for some of the other knowledge work, we've been very open to say it's our strategy to hire top talent across the country and to equip all of our conference rooms with the latest technology for collaboration, to budget to fly that talent here once a month for a week so there can be in-person collaboration. And that's worked for us. But I don't think that works for everybody, right? And frankly, it requires a lot more from managers because all the media I certainly read, the cohort that are more individual contributors love this concept. Right? I want to do more of that. Why do you need to see me in the office? And often it's maybe more middle management and executive management that's just scared to death of like, well, what if I can't see that person every day? What if I can't walk by and look at their screen? And so it is quite a shift, and there's no right answer, I think. It has to be fit for the sector you're in and the job role, but that's been our approach.
For me, it's not a question of trust. I told my team when I started, actually even before I started, I emailed the whole team and said there was an article in the Harvard Business Review. The gist was if I trusted you enough to hire you, I should trust you enough to get your work done from where you want, when you want, which I generally think is true. The challenge comes with asynchronous work. You lose a lot from a team when you are not working together at the same time on the same thing. And there are some situations where that's okay, actually. But particularly when you have a new leader, when you are hiring at a rapid pace, and you want the team to be able to work very well together, I think it's very challenging to create a high-functioning team when people are not together. Because so much of those bonds come accidentally through the course of the day. I can't tell you how many times as a young associate I would be invited into situations that I would not otherwise have been invited into had I not just been in the room. And so I really encourage the team to be in person as much as possible. We actually don't have a mandated policy for the number of days that people need to come into the office. I've asked the team to be in as much as they can be. What I prefer to offer is flexibility within a given day. I have young kids, so I'm not in the office until 8:30, and I'm gone by 4:30. I'm also online after the kids go to sleep 4 hours into the night. But I take advantage of that flexibility because it's what works with my schedule. Other people on the team have different needs, but in their own ways, similar ones. So I think there's more flexibility in that way now following COVID, but I am still a really firm supporter and would encourage the students in the room to be in person.
Yeah, I want to go back to the transition that my company is going through and talk about the a bit more of this entrepreneurial, high energy spirit. And what I'm seeing is what we do have a flexible policy, but what I'm seeing is those people who are working remote more often aren't engaging in getting that full spirit of that entrepreneurialism and seeing what's going on. There is a lot of energy creation that has happened in the last 5 months. I just got a note from we actually have a town hall this afternoon I'm really excited about. I got a note from an employee saying, I'm really excited to hear about these things. The energy is increasing by the day. But if you're not in person, to your point, you're missing some of that indirect energy. The other thing I'll talk about is managing versus leading. And I think in a world of people who are very strong managers, need to have their people right next to them, right? I mean, because they're not sure how to lead that a broad experience, how to get everyone working together more closely. That's a challenge. And so I've actually seen where I have managers in my organization versus leaders and how they respond and try new things to get their team to work differently together in those environments. So it's a bit of an evolution style as well that we have to work through.
I thought for sure you were going to ask about the Cranes article that just came out about Northern Trust, which is not funny to anybody in this room except for me. Anyway.
I can only speak for our company in terms of West Michigan. We've been hiring, right? Because we're going through, I think, an inflection point. Sounds like both of you are. We're setting up for future growth. We need new capabilities. And so that's what we've been doing. But you do see the news every day of, especially in the tech sector, going through significant changes.
Well, I think, and I don't work in the tech sector, we, Northern Trust, have always operated very tightly from a productivity standpoint. We have a very strong operating leverage. It means we haven't overhired. We haven't gotten out ahead of our skis, which I think in some cases is what happened with some of those larger tech companies. We are growing. The team is growing and preparing for future growth. So certainly in West Michigan, we haven't seen the impact nationally that some of the other wealth managers are experiencing. I will say tough times like this, I think, are an opportunity for companies to reevaluate how they're spending money. And that's where you see changes. You want to make sure even within people, do you have the right skills in your workforce to position the company for future growth? And so what you're seeing, I think, is a little bit of that shakeup as companies reevaluate the workforce, particularly those that are very large, and making sure that they're set up for future opportunity.
Yeah. One of the first things I did when I came on board was to start to look at what levels do we have and why, what's the history and evolution. And I'm really proud of the loyalty that we have in our company, but that also provides challenges because sometimes when that happens, you see promotions that happen over time due to seniority as opposed to actually a job fit and a job need. And that's one of the things that we came in. And so we did a restructuring in November, largely looking at the management levels inside the company and making sure that we were going to get to the right skill sets, the right, span of control across our leaders, and be able to drive differently. And part of that is how we spend the money. Because what we need is, as we move more into electronics and software, which we are doing, and doing more of it, that requires a different skill set. And that requires an investment. And so, we needed to rethink the organization and how we were spending money, even at the management levels, in order to free up those resources to reinvest into our engineering and innovation. And some of that is local and some of that is offshore where you need it. We have not seen all of the skill set locally. And we've had to go offshore a little bit to partner with some companies to do that. But yeah, some of it is repurposing. Hopefully that answers your question a little bit.
I just want to make sure I understand the question. Is it, when we're interviewing candidates, are there specific traits that are prominent from candidates from West Michigan? And then, is that what you're? Yeah. I don't think it's, I'll try. I don't think it's specific to West Michigan, right? Like, I think if there's any individual that's not had the opportunity to have some life and work experiences outside of one region, that does tend to show in, they were the breadth of experience you have can sometimes shape the creativity you're able to bring to solve problems or the different perspectives you're able to hold. So to me, it's not about here. It's about if you find someone who's not had opportunities to be in different places. I don't know if either of you would answer the same or different.
I fully agree with that. I mean, I talked to you earlier about my opportunity to not only travel abroad frequently on business, but live abroad. That changed who I was. And then being able to see candidates now who, even have a little bit of that travel experience. They're working for global companies that have entities around the world. Those are all value pieces. So I think the general comment is it doesn't matter where in the world it is. If they've only worked in that one area, I think they haven't seen that broader picture.
No. Look, there are a lot of people in West Michigan who have stayed and been very successful in their careers. So we're not sitting up here, I think I can speak for all of us, saying you must leave or else you're dooming your future, But one of the things I loved about consulting in particular, I can't tell you how many global companies I worked for, and you have the opportunity not only to travel to all of those companies, but to look under the hoods. And so now when I'm sitting in this situation, I can say, let me think back to all of those different cities and all of those different companies and choose what I think is fit for purpose. If I had only known one, if I had only worked at Northern Trust my entire career, and I only knew their way of operating, I wouldn't be able to question the status quo because I would accept it for universal fact. And so I think that's the difference that leaving or going to work for a global company really can bring to you.
Agreed. I think as I look at first let me talk about the evolution question of it. So what I see evolving here is an incredible investment in the community, okay? I had maybe once in my life, and I grew up in Lansing, by the way, but maybe once in my life came to Grand Rapids when I was younger. I don't remember it, but what I hear from everyone is, you're not going to believe what this place was 15 years ago, 10 years ago. And I hear that, and I'm like, really? Wow, I mean, it's great. I mean, the restaurants, everything, but I didn't see any of that evolution. But what I'll tell you is, it tells me that there's investment. Yes, the families, as we will call them, are making huge investments in the community and giving back. That's an important part of it. And I'm seeing that in, obviously, the medical side. You're seeing it in technology. In talking with some peers in the industry, the recommitment to manufacturing, right? I mean, this whole concept that manufacturing had to go offshore and had to do all of that. There are many things happening now. It's not all about automation. There's various pieces of evolution of product too, but there is a recommitment on manufacturing. So if you come back to what's the partnership of business in the region, there has to be that give back. The same guy I mentioned earlier, our lunch friend that we're going to have lunch with, made a comment to me, and I didn't realize this. He said, do you realize that Grand Rapids is the second most benevolent city in the country? And I said, I had no idea. And he goes, it's because businesses and people give back. And that's the true commitment. I mean, it really got me thinking about every time I go somewhere, I see something. Employees approached me yesterday about a new food drive piece that they want to partner with in the coming weeks. And I said, awesome, let's do this. We have to give back. I mean, this is what this community is based on. This is how this has all been built up over time. So that, for me, that's my fast answer on it. As we continue to evolve in product innovation and manufacturing and technology, medical, whatever it is, the companies rewarding, benefiting from that have to get back to the area.
Yeah, that's well said. I feel ill-prepared to answer the question candidly because, I've been here a year, and so to speak about the evolution that has come here, I would just be guessing. The closest I come, and this is just serendipitous, one of my greatest mentors in life, he went to Houghton, Michigan Tech, worked for Kimberly-Clark, and eventually found his way to Milwaukee, where I was. He grew up in Ada, Michigan. And he would certainly tell me stories of this little sleepy place, and I've had him back here for lunch in the area, and he's like, none of this was here. Like, you can't imagine what this was like 20 years ago. And so I believe him, right? I mean, I believed him in a lot of topics. And I think if this area is able to make as much change over the next 15 years as has happened over the last 15 years, watch out.
But yes, and yes. But I would be lying if I didn't say I was nervous about what the next 15 years would hold for the city. Because we're looking at a lot of change. Some of it not outside the bounds of what we've seen over the last 15, right? All of the restructuring the waterfront that will happen in downtown Grand Rapids is much akin to what happened in Ada, right? They repositioned the city, they've built these new shops, it's incredible. Bringing an MLS team to Grand Rapids with the foot traffic, with the doubling in size of the airport, these have really significant impacts for the fabric of the economy in West Michigan. And if we're not careful, I think we run the risk of losing the charm that has made Grand Rapids and surrounding areas as intimate, as tightly knit as it has been for the last couple of decades. But I would agree with John that it is the responsibility of the business leaders and the philanthropically minded community members to make sure that we steward that path forward appropriately, as we have with the commission that helped plan the transformation however many decades ago and are doing so again now with the work in the stadium and the riverfront. So I'm very optimistic, but I would, like I said, I'd be lying if I said, of course you run the risk of
Proceed with caution.
yes, proceed with caution. Yeah.
Well, you may or may not agree, but I think that you can lead human beings, but not manage them. And we have a tendency in business to think that it's about management. So what do you do uniquely as a human being in terms of leadership?
I have an answer.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
I think the biggest mistake you can make as a leader is to tell, I think, or direct or force. And I am only as successful as my team is. And in fact, I can't do it alone. So I rely on the success and the creativity and the ideas of my team to make sure that we as a business are successful. So I actually think the answer is just to give them some of that responsibility. So I might have an idea of a line of business or a specific strategy for a target market where I think we could be really successful, but I might not be the right person to implement that. I might not have the right skill set or the right knowledge. And even if I do, perhaps there's a member of the team who I'd really like to develop and raise up. And so I do my best to try to hand some of that off to the team so that we can be successful together. That to my mind is the difference between leadership and management. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
And I'll add on that, and this is something that's been on my mind a lot, especially this week, and I'm going to talk about it in my town hall this afternoon. I'm going to challenge the leaders in the organization to take a different approach make a commitment for the next month to take an approach. And that approach is the following: ask, don't tell. So in this case, ask the questions to lead them to help get to their own conclusions. Part of my leadership philosophy, I really don't like to do the micromanage thing. I can paint the vision of where we need to go. I want them to decide how we're going to get there, right? Because I think that's, to your point a little bit, right? I mean, we can go tell them, hey, do this, do this, do this. That's not terribly empowering. And it's not a great learning method either. And so one of my challenges to our leadership team is going to be only ask questions for the next month. Only.
That'll be interesting.
Well, we'll see. There's some that aren't capable of doing it, but let's see. We'll challenge.
I am of a similar school of thought. The only addendum that I might tack on is it's certainly been my experience this situational leadership framework is really important. That while we can aspire that you can talk only about the outcome and then everything just happens, I think you need to meet people where they are on that journey. And so there are going to be some team members, especially earlier in the career, where it's the best for them in their career to be given really clear direction. There'll be other team members as they demonstrate success that, no, we're going to talk in terms of outcomes and you're going to figure out the how. There'll be other team members that'll be totally self-directed, and there's a range of people's readiness for that you could actually be really damaging if I'm expecting you just to be totally autonomous and you haven't had that life experience yet. Well, I mean, we have quite a few skills. I think for us, certainly technology is, that broad bucket is an area I think you'll find most companies making investments in for the foreseeable future, and would love to have local talent. We're in a unique place in our journey where a lot of our skills we're hiring are around marketing, product management, and healthcare distribution, sales experience. And it's the experience part that's tough, coming out. And different companies are at different places, so there may be other companies that really have robust training programs and are able to take talent through that pipeline, but it'd be the tech space for us, personally. But both of you.
Yeah, I'm going to give a completely different answer. A lot of that's going to digitize with time, and so people won't be needed necessarily in some capacity, certainly in some, not in others. I think a lot about the skills that are non-transferable, that people will have to learn and practice and excel at for the next coming decades. I remember very clearly telling my mother I was going to major in English, and she was like, "You are crazy. You're never going to find a job. What are you going to do with this liberal arts degree?" Best decision I ever made. Those are skills that have served as the foundation for everything I've done from there on out. Good communication skills, being able to clearly articulate your line of thought and your vision to make sure that your team is behind you, that you can persuade other professional advisors in the market, your future clients. I don't really think it matters whether that's English or communications or some other liberal arts degree, but it's my general opinion, and you can disagree with me. I can teach myself accounting. I can buy the textbook. I can learn how to build a model in Excel. But I find it a lot harder, particularly in talent just coming out of schools, to teach some of the softer skills, the interpersonal skills, the qualitative skills. Those are much harder to come by. So make sure that you don't miss out on those courses in your education, because I think those, at least in my circumstance, have been the most valuable.
And the opportunities. I mean, my biggest encouragement always is think about your career as a skill block builder. And you're building a pyramid of foundation, and you need the blocks to go do that. You talked about the soft skills. Again, I said early on, I started in HR and communications. And I forever will say that has benefited me as a leader. My ability to communicate with people, empathize, be able to be a people leader, it has all come from that soft side. Coming back to cybersecurity, we are very committed to an increase in software and the cybersecurity needs of what we have to do. I mean, we're inside. A lot of our product is inside vehicles. You have to control that environment so it doesn't get hacked. So we do see an increase of that. That being said, we want to see an increase of candidates. And if we can't find it in the local market, it's forcing us to have to go abroad.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking us kind of through your journey and sharing your experiences and your thoughts on West Michigan. We very much appreciate it. How about one more round of applause? My name's Jarrett Martis. I'm a member of the Seidman Alumni Affinity Network Board. I also work at the University of Michigan Health West. At this time, I want to bring up Kenna Wagner to join me. Alison, John, and Tom, as a small token of our appreciation for your time and your thoughts today, we're happy to present to each of you a gift of a Pure Water for the World water filtration system to a community of need in the world, which helps empower people with access to life's most important necessities, safe water, sanitation, and hygiene. Thank you. was great to see the room full today. Thank you once again for attending. We couldn't do this without the vision and support of the late Ambassador Peter Secchia, Joan, and the Secchia family. And we invite you to return to the next breakfast series on March 22nd. We will have Mark White, CEO of Shape Corp, here to share his thoughts. Thank you again. Get out, enjoy the sunshine. Have a great weekend, and drive safe.